yourself for a journey into the unknown. The Haunter's Tale podcast, where every whisper, every shadow is a doorway to fear.
All right. Hey, Tim, how are you? Happy Halloween.
Happy Halloween, Michael. How have you been?
Oh, I'm great. Welcome to Haunter's Tale.
Thank you very much. I'm proud to be here.
So let's talk a little bit about your history. Most people know you now as an actor, writer, director, but you also have a history with the haunt industry. Why don't you take us through that?
I, like a lot of people, started doing haunts at uh, our school, at church, and one of the other kids in the neighborhood. We used to do one in his garage. Came out of wanting to get more out of Halloween. You go out and get your stuff, and if it was raining, you'd have to put a big coat over your Dracula costume so nobody would see it. But first thing I ever set up at the house was I had a cardboard skeleton that I hung in a tree, and I put a walkie-talkie behind my jack-o'-lantern. And when the kids would get near the porch, I'd be hiding over behind my dad's car and talk to them. Uh, but first actual, besides churches and schools, the JCs, like a lot of people started with the JCs. JCs was the first actual haunted house I worked. Um, High school teacher, she said, I'm dating a guy in Johnson City and he's building a haunted house with the JCs. You ought to go down there and see if you can help out. Because she knew me, knew me backwards and forwards. So I went down, and they said, we've got 3 rooms we have no idea what to do with. So we jumped in, and I took over those 3 rooms, and turned out great. We did a witch burning in one where we built a pyre, and the front of the pyre had doors on it that we concealed with logs, and so she we had a fan blowing orange lit silk, and then this monster comes out of the bottom part. Uh, we
How
also
old
did
were you? How old were you when you did this?
16. I think it's
Wow.
my junior year in high school.
Wow, that's great. What were the other two rooms? Do you remember?
We did a
Okay.
exorcist themed one where um, girl was in the bed, had the covers pulled up, and she's screaming, made up like Reagan from The Exorcist, and this demon comes out from under the covers at the end of the bed. It was all very low tech, but gosh, it was fun back in those days. I,
Wow.
I continued with the JCs. With the When I moved the next year, I went to college, and I was down here in Knoxville at University of Tennessee, in the Powell JCs. I always did a big haunted house, and they had a house. It was a classic Queen Anne Victorian with a witch's peak turret, and it was on Fourth and Gill, and the house was really run down. There was a guy actually living out of. He had 2 rooms. One he slept in, and one where he had a kitchen and a sofa and a television. And he was restoring the house while he lived in it.
Oh, wow.
And they paid him X amount of dollars, and we had access to all the rest of the house. We could do pretty much anything because he's in process of taking the plaster off the wooden lath and all that.
Yeah.
And this house was scary. It was scary to work there. I mean, the guys, JCs were known for drinking a lot of beer. We'd say, what are we going to build in this thing? How long is it going to take? It looks like about 4 cases worth. So they'd continuously be going to get beer, and I'd be back, studiously working away, painting, and I'd be in the house by myself, and it was really creepy. And
Wow.
then the next year was on Dameron Avenue, was an abandoned hospital. And we actually there was a conveyor belt that went from one floor up to the next that still worked. And as the people were walking down this hallway, we'd turn the conveyor belt on. There'd be a casket going up, and about the time he reached them, he'd flip the lid open. And that building was just scary. Had a built-in ticket booth, for
Wow.
the reception area up front. It was amazing. I got spoiled with those 2 buildings.
So then, shortly after that, you decided to do your own haunt, right?
Well, my own haunt was several years after that. This was in college, and I went to after college, worked at the World's Fair
Oh, wow.
for
Okay.
6 months in Knoxville as a entertainer. Host. I was sponsored by the Little Debbie snack cake company. And then next year I started with Carnival Cruise Lines. I was with them for 27 years. So about let's see, 18, a little bit more. About 20 years ago,
Yeah.
I did Crone House, the haunting of Crone House, for the first time. First year we were in the Johnson City Mall, and it was one of those, hide the paint cans are coming in the front door type thing. We just were running out of time, but we got open. Next year we're in a shopping center, and then we took several years off. It's hard to generate interest in the shopping center.
Mhm.
So the 3rd and 4th year we were at Thunder Valley Campground, and we built an 18-room house in the middle of the campground.
Wow.
We I built nearly 200 4x8 wall panels. I had guys at my church building them for me, retired guys who had workshops in their basement. I remember one guy drove up to the campground, just sticking out of the top of his pickup truck. Is beautiful. So yeah,
So
we
let me get this timeline straight. So you were doing the stuff for the JCs, and that was in college, right? High
yes,
school, then in college, and then
yes.
you went out and you did your own thing. You were the cruise director and all of that. Did
Mhm.
you still? I mean, what made you come back to haunt? Is it something you always wanted to do? Were you always out there like looking at haunts around the holidays? Or, I mean, obviously it's something that you had this infatuation with it when you were young. Obviously, I know a little bit about your history, but you grew up much like most of us with famous monsters and a
Mhm.
horror host and watching all those great horror movies. And, then we lived through the slasher genre. And then also the fact that those haunted houses really became prevalent in the 70s, right?
Yeah.
Those JC haunted houses specifically. So then you get out of college, you go out and you're doing your thing. Like, was it always something you wanted to come back to? Did you visit haunts during that time, or tell me that story?
Well, I forgot to mention somewhere in, let's see, let me think. About 30 years ago, I wrote my first book on building haunted attractions.
Mm-hmm.
I had the Phil Morris book, and Phil Morris was a good friend of mine. I met him when I was a kid, when he was doing magic shows back in my hometown. And then did some work for him as a ventriloquist and magician. I did a couple of tours with Phil and a couple without him, but ones that he had booked.
Mhm.
And people like Tommy Curtin, who's the world's most amazing juggler, who was my mentor as an entertainer. And we would go out and do these sponsored shows in Louisiana. We'd go to Louisiana and do like 15 shows. So anyway, I noticed there seemed to be a vacancy of information on building haunted attractions. Everybody passed around that same old Dr. John How to Build a Haunted House tape. You had Phil Morris's book. Before I wrote my book, Leonard Pickle put out 4 books. But I decided to write a book, and we sold about 3,000 of them. And it did really well. And I still have people in the haunt industry that say, "Hey, I got your book." I went to a haunt here near Knoxville, Frightmare Manor, Chris Wooden and Michael Wooden. And I met him on a cruise ship when I was performing. He said, "I bought your book." It was already out of print, and he bought one off of eBay for, I think he said $180 or something.
Wow.
I wrote that book, and then I was sit on the airplane and I just sketched stuff. And I was at the Transworld show, Halloween show in Chicago. My buddy Cliff Martin saw it in my bag. He said, "What's that?" And I gave it to him. He acted like he's putting it in his bag. He said, "You need to print this." So it was the sketchbook. The second book was pretty rough. I mean, it was like sketches and handwritten notes and stuff in there, and people loved it. So I sold a bunch of those, and then I wanted to do another book that was a little, what I call, cleaner than the first book. It was called Make Your House Everything You Ever Haunted. And
It's a great title.
It was more down to earth, the business part of it, not just the business part of it. But the first book was a fun haunted house book I had recipes for haunted house parties and that sort of thing. So I wanted to teach people how to build a small attraction for the home haunter that wanted to move forward.
What is a monster kid?
What is a monster kid? That's a good thing. I think I'm a monster kid. I'm still a monster kid. I think it's a kid that grew up loving monsters, infatuated with monsters.
Monster kid is a state of mind. You can be young, you can be old. It's a shared environment of being captivated by the early classic horror films.
I think a monster kid is a kid, when he was growing up, probably a little lonely sometimes, at least I was. It's something about monsters that they're our friends in a way. At least they became that to me.
You know what it is? It's somebody that grew up as a kid loving monsters, pure and simple.
And then in 1958, this magazine called Famous Monsters came out, and all of a sudden, it appeared through their letters column that there were other kids out there like you.
Monster kids are people that grew up wanting the monster to win.
It's such a time for many of us when there wasn't a problem, there wasn't taxes, there wasn't politics, there wasn't fear, there wasn't a housing crisis. If there was, and there was in the 70s, we didn't know it. All we knew was Bride of Frankenstein is going to be on Saturday at 11 o'clock, and that is all I need to know.
I think a monster kid is Well, it's what we all were. Anybody in this business was a monster kid, you know. We were the kids who grew up fascinated by anything that had to do with creatures or makeup or weird alternative visions presented in movies.
I'd say the generation of people who grew up with famous monsters and then Fangoria and sort of were in that position where they, the idea of monsters and monster movies and going to see monster movies as an event shaped the way they looked at fiction.
I would say a monster kid is anyone who at a very young age connected with this fantastic genre.
A monster kid, me. I'm the definition of a monster kid.
That feeling that there's more of us out there, because monster fans are people who feel as singular and alone as the monsters themselves.
I don't think the monster kid's ever going to grow up.
So you've written these books, which hopefully we're going to release as part of the Haunter's Tale series coming up in the next year. And then, you've done all this work with the JCs, but you really came at it as you just loved it. You knew enough how to build things like that. But again, very rarely was there, like there is today, where there's like classes and things like that really kind of teach haunters what to do, or other people sharing their expertise. So take me on the journey. You wrote the book because you wanted to get that information out there. And then what happened? How did you create Crone House? Like, what is the trajectory from, okay, I've written the book, now I'm going to do this on my own. I'm going to create my own haunt.
My problem, which a lot of haunters had, was finding money to do the haunted house. And I knew whatever I did was going to have to be on a pretty tight budget. I had two friends that I borrowed $10,000 each from, with a promised return of 10%. And we found a location at the Johnson City Mall. We were able to buy all the wood and everything we needed to build panels with, and build props with, and buy insurance with.
So what year was this? 19.
Oh, let's see.
90? 90s?
90s, yeah. 94, 95.
Okay.
I believe it was around 95. That's so weird, I can't think.
And that's really the resurgence of, well, not even the resurgence, that's the emergence of, all these Halloween events, I believe, like the early to mid, to the mid 90s really is when the gates started to explode. Before that, there were, maybe one in every town that was sponsored by the JCs, or there'd be a home haunt, like you'd do your front room as kids came and trick-or-treated and you try to scare them. But to do a piece of theater, a living, breathing, okay, you're coming, that stuff, you're coming to see and experience, that really is a product of the, early to mid 90s. Yourself, a handful of people, Leonard Pickle, as you mentioned. So you had this idea to do Crone House. So you were getting the money to build the the materials, but tell me what was it that you wanted to tell the story? But tell me the story of Crone House and what that was. Like, why was that what you chose for your very first foray?
Crown House was going to be like a museum almost. There was an old house in Johnson City, the Swingles house, Dr. Swingles house. And it was a huge, imposing brick building, sort of colonial, probably about 120 years old. And it was on one of the the main thoroughfares in Johnson City. So people would see this house every day. And the lawn was kept up, the house was kept up, but the windows were boarded, neatly boarded up.
Wow.
It had been abandoned for years. It had been Dr. Swingle's hospital for a while. And of course, with that, all the local legends and local, oh, he used to do surgery in the basement and they still got big kegs of blood in the basement, that type of stuff. So I thought, you know what, we can play on this without, we can, without having to do the haunt in that building. So the story was that house was built by Alistair Crone, who had a museum, traveling museum. He was friends with P.T. Barnum, and he's friends with Houdini. He went to England. He was actually from Scotland originally. He married a woman in Tennessee and had a very profitable traveling chamber of horrors. He went around the world collecting haunted items. And he stored them in that house until one night the family disappeared. And the house has been closed ever since. I got permission from a great nephew who never lived in the house to move some of the haunted items into the Johnson City Mall.
Oh, wow.
And people could view these items, and there were places where we might have veered a little bit from the theme, and it wasn't it was not where they'd walk in a room and a guy would talk for 20 minutes or whatever.
Right.
It was a push through jump scares, and but we had a werewolf, Pepper's ghost.
Oh, wow.
We used a Pepper's ghost in the front room. I had an animatronic skull and I had a skeleton. I put the two together. We could never get the animatronic skull saying our welcome speech. We were working right up until the first night. So we just played the thing, and we had the skeleton draped in gauze, seated in a chair on one side, and a table and a duplicate chair on the other side of the Pepper's ghost. So you could see through this guy. And I got two round wooden balls and painted them white and stuck them in the eye sockets, and they were painted like a day glow green, and he was lit with black light. That was what was fun about when we started in haunted houses. You and I, we had I had a black light bulb. It was the type you screw in.
Yeah.
And I used it for years.
Yeah.
So I was always hooked on black light, but I thought Crone House the first year was good. It wasn't great. We didn't have time to finish a lot of the finishings on the walls like we wanted. We wanted to paint brick patterns and that sort of thing, but most of them were Gray and black and dark brown. But we had I had borrowed some props from Oliver Holler, loaned us some props. Cliff Martin. So we had some good props for the show. Of course, I bought things, bought masks. We found costumes at Goodwill. You know, it was it's a good show. We just didn't get a whole lot of attendance because I couldn't spend a whole lot of money on advertising. Not enough. And
Right.
I found over the years, you really, if you've got $20,000 to spend on a haunted house, spend 10 to 12 of it on advertising.
Right. Well, that's a great takeaway. So I just want to make sure though. So Aleister Crone is not a real man. That's somebody that you created. You know, the
I
way you
created.
were talking about him, like we actually had some of his props and things like that. All of that backstory is so fascinating. I mean, and that really, to me, that is what I love about haunters is that we have this ability to create a whole mythology, right? And it can be pretty in depth. So, you know, like so with Crone, like then you did it the first year and then you moved locations, right? You went
Yes,
and where did you go after that?
we were in a shopping center. We were supposed to have gotten that space a second year, and I mean, like 4 weeks before we were supposed to start building, they rented it.
Mm.
I didn't have a contract or anything, so we found an empty space in a shopping center in Piney Flats, Tennessee. It was halfway between Bristol, where I lived, and Johnson City, where Crone House was. And we pretty much stuck to the same story, the backstory of Aleister Crone, and it reflected on our website. I had the written story on the website. I've photoshopped pictures of people. I even photoshopped picture of a tent, a sepia tone photo from early 1900s that had his banner on top of it. And what's interesting when you just drop little hints, our security guard, Brother Dave, I called him, he would be at the front, and he would listen to people talk. And these two girls, this girl said, well, I've heard about Crone House all my life. I drive by it every day on the way to work. We never told people that was the house officially, but we dropped little hints that was it on Roan Street. And the story grew legs.
Yeah.
And you can do that. We started a story when we were at the campground that one of our actors turned around. There was a little girl standing there. And she thought it was a little girl of one of the actors in the house. It was in the central corridor. We started that story, and we actually had ghost hunters, guys in ghost hunter gear, come down the first night and want to go through. We had a couple of celebrities. Terry Evans Wood came to the haunted house we had at the campground. Fairly well known, very well known illusionist and magician, especially here in the Smokies area. Dick Warlock came by just to visit. He wasn't booked on it. He and Kat jumped on their big motorcycles and came over, visited with the cast, and just so nice.
Yeah. He's such the nicest guy, and then you realize he's Michael Myers, and it's so great.
Exactly.
Yeah. So Terry, you know, we were lucky enough, we got to go. Terry, occasionally, I don't know if he does it every Halloween, but he opens up his house, and I tell you what, if there's ever a house that could have a portal to another world somewhere, and I mean, the theater, it's an old house, and you go up there's displays from turn of the century kind of stuff. There's old illusions, but there's an era of and an energy in there. And then the little theater that he has, we were lucky to do that. You mentioned Terry. Um, let's get back to Crone. So then you did it 2 years or three?
4 years altogether.
4 years.
But we took 3 years off in between the first 2 years.
Yeah.
And the second 2 years. The second year we didn't do very well, and it got to be I had to take 2 months off work, off cruise
Right.
ships to do it.
Right.
And I got to a point I had to be able to afford to do it.
Right.
We did much better at the campground. First year we had the campground was owned by Randy Moore, a good friend of mine. And he's the owner I think he sold it, War Wizard monster truck.
Okay.
And he had a ride truck he took around to monster truck events. And so we sold tickets for the monster ride truck. It held 12 people. And there in the campground next to Crone House. And we built a 18-room house just without a floor, without a roof. Everybody thought it was crazy. They said, "What if it rains?" I said, "Well, people might not even come out if it rains. That's something we have to deal with." And we were lucky up until the Friday before Halloween. Of all the days it would rain, and man, I saw Noah. He came by. We had the night before it was starting toward closing, and I remember we had this girl that worked with us. She was tiny, and lightning struck between us and the creek that went by us. And listen, this girl was across the river in a parked car. She was out of there. She took off running. But we had that was a really good haunt. My wife, Melanie, she was running the ticket booth. Now there was a parking booth down at the end of the entrance of the campground where they would come in and stop. So, and Randy let us use that for our ticket booth. And she called me down there. She said, "You need to turn that screaming sound effects off. I can hear it all the way up here." And it was a good ways to the ticket booth. And I said, "There aren't any screams on our soundtrack." So it was echoing in that valley. We had great screamers at Crone House.
I'm author Mark Muncy.
And I'm author Erica Lance.
And this is Eerie Travels.
Greetings, travelers. Join us as we travel through folklore, myths, monsters, legends, and dark history.
Now, we'll be your guide to the spooky side of reality as we discuss cryptids, paranormal, and all things preternatural.
Sometimes we find the truth is way scarier than fiction.
We're on twice a week on your favorite podcast platforms, including iTunes, Spotify, Amazon, and YouTube.
We have amazing guests from all of the areas of the strange and unusual, including witnesses, investigators, and more.
Yeah, with Erica's curiosity and ridiculous array of pop culture and true crime knowledge.
And Mark's decades of experience diving into folklore and the legends with the truth that's behind them.
So join us, travelers, as we take you to the edge of reality, and we'll see you on the other side.
So then, so tell me, you still love a good haunted house. I know you do.
Absolutely.
So would you ever want to do it again? Or now that you've did it, I mean, what would you tell people that are thinking about doing it? Like,
do it out of love and make sure whatever money you allot for it or you borrow for it, make sure you're not depending on it for your next meal.
okay.
I would love to do a haunt again. My friend John Tarpley and I have talked for years about, we've gone and looked at locations, talked for years about doing a haunt. It's just trying to find some money, trying to get an investor that doesn't want to step in and take over and say, hey, let's splatter blood over here and guts over here. You know, you gotta deal with people from time to time that might not share your vision. I used to the JC's haunted house. I remember I painted a brick wall in a big room, and it took me several days. I would get out of class. I was still in college, and I'd run over to the haunted house and I'd start working. Uh, I remember I did this beautiful block wall, manacles hanging from it, cobwebs, and then some guy comes in there the next night and sprays "Get out" about 6 times with a can of spray paint on that wall. And I was livid.
Yeah.
I said, why would you spend all this time and money building a haunted house, and as soon as people come in, you tell them to get out?
Yeah. That's always been a funny thing that I've noticed. You know, my experience, people come in and they'll say like, all right, so now this character's going to come and go get out, and this character's going to come and go get out, and this character, it's like, that's not scary to me. What's
Yeah.
to me is when they say don't leave or come here. You know, I understand like the Amityville, the voice
Yeah.
said get out, but that's one isolated, you know, kind of haunt, not people just completely yelling at you, get out, get out, get out, get out. You know, it's like then you're in a home invasion haunt or something. You're you've become
Yeah.
you've become the bad guy, you know. Um, so let's talk a little bit about Halloween. What does Halloween mean to you? I mean, like what's your traditions for Halloween?
Um, well, starting off, I wanted to recreate. I always wanted to be Dracula, and I was always a chubby Dracula. My mom made me a cape, which I think I wore most of the year. And then one year, my friend Jimmy Dempsey, he was my best friend. I guess it was, I guess we're 11 years old or something. And I got into makeup, made him up as a werewolf, and I used Elmer's glue on the hair that is a little difficult peeling off at the end of the night.
Oh, you just stuck hair on his face with Elmer's glue?
Elmer's glue, yeah.
Oh, that's good.
Didn't know about spirit gum at the time. It was before I got Dick Smith's book.
Yeah.
And stuff like Famous Monsters magazine. I wore those out. I got my first one. The first one I got was the issue with Barnabas Collins, Jonathan Frid, who I later got to spend some time with. He's an amazing guy.
Mm-hmm.
But that was the first Famous Monsters. I think it was issue 63, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
And I would go down to this little place. I lived in Bluff City a lot of these years. There's a little place called Hodges Confectionery, and everybody just called him Banny. And Banny had comic books and magazines and hot dogs and hamburgers, and had a candy counter with penny candy and stuff like that. And he always got in one issue of Famous Monsters. And I think he figured out after a while I was buying it. Yeah, I'd check down there every month. one of the biggest thrills I got, Forrest Ackerman sent me a quote for my first book. I never got to meet Forrest Ackerman. When I started doing the Halloween shows, the Transworld shows in Chicago, I got to meet, quite a few actors, and I got to know Gunnar Hansen fairly well. Of course, this was after I had done the haunted houses, but got to meet and just meeting some of your heroes is just amazing.
Yeah.
And I look back now, none of them disappointed me. So many people talk about meeting a movie star or a sports guy or somebody that they just adore or worship, and then they turn out to be just a dick, and so none of them ever disappointed. And those we started the IAHA. The IAHA, International Association of Haunted Attractions. I had talked to a bunch of my friends in the haunted industry. I had been to the Chicago show for a couple of years. So it's like the third year I went up, I'd actually printed up name tags and stuff because I wanted to talk to people about it. And I got up there and Ollie said, well, Leonard's called a big meeting tomorrow night to start a national organization. I thought, okay. So I went and I talked to Leonard before that. I said, this was something I've been wanting to do. How can I help? So at the time, there was kind of two sides in the haunt industry. And a lot of people didn't split up or anything, but there were a couple of camps. One didn't want a national organization. And I was in Order of Merlin and the International Brotherhood of Magicians. And I always enjoyed having that organization behind what we did. So I suggested I wanted to call it Haunt, HA, Haunted Attractions United Network, small NT for network. And Leonard wanted to call it IAHA. And of course, after we named it and got all the papers filled out, we realized there was the International Arabian Horse Association, the International Association of Hospital Administrators. There's like 4 IAHAs. But got it started, had a board of 13 members. And when I went up there, Melanie said, now don't get involved in a whole lot of stuff you don't have time for because you're flying back and forth on the ships and blah, blah, blah. So Rex Harrington, who's a haunter, he actually nominated me for the first president. And I said, I don't think I have time to devote to it. Which I wish I had gone ahead because it ended up I would have, but I wanted it to be successful. I wanted somebody that could really drive the thing and build it. So we did elect my friend Drew Hunter. You know Drew.
I do, yeah.
And he was our first president. And Deanne Dagan, she's Headless Horseman haunt. I believe she's in Texas. She became our second president. We had a lot of great guys on the board. And it went for a while, and then it they started the HHA.
Right.
I think Larry started, Larry Kirshner, who I've been a good friend for years as well, started that, and then they blended them together.
Okay.
And I since I'm not really that active in the haunt, I haven't participated in that. I've been to a couple of haunt cons and Leonard was doing one, and we went to one in up in Kentucky, and I enjoy those. I'd like to do more of them. I just haven't had the time the last 15 years with my job in Pigeon Forge.
Yeah. So now, you're at a point, you've got this great history. What do you think about the state of the haunt industry now?
I think it's huge. What you're seeing is companies that have formed out of a single haunt, and then they've either bought smaller haunts in other towns, maybe some nearby. There's some that have 8 or 10 locations around the country. I think you're seeing a lot of that, a lot of big corporations, and then you've got guys like Billy Messina and Ben Armstrong with Netherworld. I just saw them on the local news here in Knoxville.
Yeah.
The other night, I saw Ben talking, and they were walking through, and that's an amazing attraction.
Yeah, I had never been. This is the first year I got to go.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Well, I was always it wasn't easy for me to go to other haunts in October because I was working, you know. But it's funny. I remember I met them 20 some odd years ago, and they would come, to Universal and things like that. And but I just happened to be in Atlanta, and they hosted me, which was wonderful. And I tell you what, I went through. They had a maze there, one that was very much about like like a war of these classic monsters, like when monsters attack, right? So
yeah,
and I just smiled the entire way through. It was, I mean, their experience is value because I mean, I was in that haunt for 20 minutes at least, maybe more, just navigating through just really amazing sets, and their talent's really great. But it's interesting to me, like I think I'm similar to a lot of people that moved into the haunt industry. I still can recall the first time I did something in the front room of my my parents' house, and that first scream, right? Getting that first scream.
Oh, yes.
Setting up whether it's the Sounds of Terror LP that you're playing for the sound effects, and
the old Disney.
Yeah, and then just the power of candlelight, and then realizing that once you get your first black light bulb, and again now I remember when they came out with the long tube, like almost fluorescent black light look. And I was like, wow, this is going to change everything. I think we still hold tight to that. We remember what it was like, just the fun of it, and the promise of a nice spooky night.
When I saw Netherworld, the only regret I had that I had to move through. It's almost like a conga line.
Yeah.
When we went through, had to move through stuff. I wanted to stay and look at stuff.
Yeah.
I mean the all the, lack of a better word, decoration or the scenery and stuff is just amazing.
Yeah.
And I had very good friends in New Orleans, Ross Carpelman over at the House of Shock. The House of Shock was crazy.
Mhm.
I don't know how many of your listeners saw the House of Shock, but if you did, congratulations. I was there about 4 times after I got to know Ross, and worked it a couple of times. So I met Phil Anselmo. I had no idea who he was. My son. I told my son I met a guy named Phil Anselmo, and he about flipped because he was a big Pantera guy. And but I just talked to Ross the other day. We stay in touch. I don't know even what the disposition. I don't know if he sold the name or if it's still around. But in Baton Rouge, Dwayne Sanborn has another one of the most amazing haunts, 13th Gate. He give you an idea. I mean, they built remember in, I think it was in Interview with the Vampire, there was a walk, like a bridge that was bricked on the inside that you walk through, a big long tunnel like. And I remember he told me they cut bricks for days and glued them on this thing because it was a long hallway with a oval shape. It's hard to describe it, but it was amazing. The detail. They had a statue in a garden scene that when you walk by, she would look at you because she was real, and she looked amazing. So I've seen some great haunted houses over the years. Oliver Holler had a great show over in Asheville, the Haunt Factory. And I've never been big into gore and stuff like that, and his was not. It was unique. He used a lot of illusions, you know. Same with Cliff Martin. Cliff had Hacker House, and I loved Hacker House. I go over and work with Cliff, and we'd meet. And matter of fact, about 6 of us met over at Hacker House when he built his first permanent building, and we met over there and worked a weekend trying to help get a facade built.
Oh, wow.
And that was one of the greatest weekends ever.
Yeah.
My friend Doug Ferguson was over there. Doug Ferguson invented the flying crank ghost.
All right. Now, what's the flying crank ghost?
Well, the flying crank ghost, if you look on the internet, it's all over the internet, like them kids like. It is a mechanism. It has a motor. It has an arm that goes around, and it makes a ghost do this.
Oh, okay.
So you got
like the thing Benson Price had in House on Haunted Hill, where he's
that big thing.
Don't worry about the acid that apparently the thing came out of.
Yeah, I'm sure it didn't melt the strings.
Yeah.
But so you hook this thing from the ceiling, and it's got a motor, and then the ghost hangs down about this far. And he had several versions, but he made one for me for my first Crown House. Gave to me as a gift, a full size one. And Doug and I went over. It was just a lot of fun building, helping with somebody else's haunted house. I would go over help with Haunt Factory. Ollie would bring his crew. He brought his crew over the first year, and we built like a whole third of it that night.
Oh, wow.
Because they knew what they were doing. So I was a bit clueless the first year as to some things. I knew what I wanted.
Yeah.
And I'd done enough. When I was working, it's funny, it was asking what I did during that time during cruise ships. Before I started after I started on my book, I got to know a guy named Charlie Sasser. He was a U.S. Customs agent in Nassau. And I would see him every week, and he was from South Carolina. And he said he knew all about what I was going through. He said, "Hey, next week when y'all are overnight, won't you come over? We're doing the embassy, which means everybody that works in Nassau from the U.S., like in customs, immigration, and all that, they kind of all hang together there in the Bahamas. They're in Nassau. They're provided nice housing near each other. Well, all the embassy people were putting on a haunted orchard."
Oh, okay.
And he said, "Come early." So we need some. So I've actually done some some consulting in the Bahamas. Nothing paid for, but we had a blast. Had a wonderful time.
What's your perfect Halloween night?
Well, normally I would be working at a haunt somewhere, or I'd like to be. I love jack-o'-lanterns. I would do 5 or 6 normally. I did when I was up in Wisconsin this last year. I had 4 of them on my little porch in this place I was renting while I was working up there. Unfortunately, the street we live on, we live in a subdivision which is the most active Halloween area in Seymour, in Tennessee, where I live. I string lights and pumpkins and stuff like that, but probably won't this year. Heading up to Kentucky tomorrow.
Yeah.
Mhm.
To do a ghost tour, right?
A ghost tour. It's called Night at the Distillery. It's at the Buffalo Trace Distillery. Some clever man came up with a great idea.
I
So
love the fact that I mean, from what you've told me too, is that there is an energy in that place. I mean, that's a little spooky. I love going into places that have the history and you can just see that, okay, something's here. I don't
yeah,
know what it is, but you just feel it. Your hair goes up on the back of your neck, and you're going to be there Halloween night, so hopefully maybe you'll see something.
maybe I've got my ghost app on my phone,
Yeah.
and I'm playing a ghost.
Yeah.
I play the ghost of Colonel Silas Shade,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm dressed in the official pristine white suit. I got the little Colonel Sanders tie,
Yeah.
and I am actually a Kentucky Colonel, so that's maybe a ghost of an old Colonel will recognize me coming
Yeah.
up there. Uh,
Have you ever seen a ghost?
Not what I could say 100% I was sure of. We saw what we thought was a ghost on the highway driving back from Knoxville in high school. We had gone down for a choir competition. And there's 5 of us guys driving back, 2 in the front, 3 in the back, just wedged in there. And all of a sudden, there's this wispy thing in the middle of the road. And it's wispy, but it's pretty solid. And the guy driving slams on the brakes and we slide right through this thing. We're on the interstate doing about 70 when we see it. And we all turn around and look behind us and there's nothing back there. And it was the shape and size of a man, average sized man. So we got back to we had to meet at the high school, and this was like 11 o'clock at night. We met at the high school, meet our parents, drive us home. And we walked into the high school, and our choir director, Tom Elam, he looked at us and said, you guys look like you've seen a ghost. And we already had that conversation as soon as we saw that. One of the other guys sitting in the front, Tim Fox was his name. He said, boys, I think we just seen a ghost. And so I wrote about it in folklore class. Well, evidently, so did a girl at one of the other high schools in the area, because our folklore teachers knew each other. And I knew the folklore teacher at that high school because we played bluegrass together. And our stories almost matched.
Wow.
And that's as close as I had. Now, Melanie, my wife, she's seen several. And I believe her 100% because she doesn't make stuff up to impress people.
Right.
And we believe that Tammy, lady that lived here before, might still be around here at the house. I'll be in the basement working on trains, and nobody else will be here, and I'll hear footsteps up here. We've got a little china cabinet keeps unlocking itself. Little shadow figures from time to time. Nothing scary, honestly. The place where I used to work, that place got a lot of them.
Yeah.
I've been spoken to a couple of times. I've seen quick shadows. I've seen glimpses of people, but none that I can tell you 100% was a ghost. But
have they ever thought about bringing in a hunter there, a ghost hunter to?
Well, we did a ghost hunt one night.
Yeah.
We got EVP. Several people saw a shadow figure up in the upper floor. And I talked to.
Is this at the theater? Where is
Yes,
that?
Hatfield.
Yeah,
Hatfield
the
McCoy Theater.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I thought it was a pretty successful ghost hunt. It was about 3 a.m. We were allowed to go down there and do it. We got EVPs and shadow figures, but since people have seen a girl back in the server's locker room, I've spoken to several times. One especially unsettling in the beverage station. And it's not just me. A lot of people have experienced stuff there. So it's a little spooky.
What's something that really has scared you?
One of the things that scared me, and you'll love this. So we didn't have remotes for the television. The remote was me running to the television, putting on whatever channel my dad wanted to see. But they always went to bed about 10:30, 11, and I could stay up on Friday night and watch Shock Theater. And I remember I was laying in the floor looking up at the television like this. And all of a sudden, when something happened, a mouse ran through the room. A real mouse in my real house ran through the room, and I leaped out of my skin. As for movies,
now, hold on. You're telling me of all the things that you've experienced and the things that you've created, thing that has scared you more than anything is a mouse?
Well, again, I'm 12 years old.
I know. I'm just messing with you.
Watching a horror film. So I'll tell you one of my favorite film scares. And Leonard Pickle, no, he didn't send. I sent it to him. Somebody gave me The Woman in Black, the original version. The original, yeah. And there's a scene, and it's been out, I don't know, 30 years. So, spoiler alert. If you haven't watched it by now, don't complain. But there's a scene where the woman who is a ghost, this guy sees in this the Eel Marsh House on this little British seaside coastal area, spooky house. He's a lawyer in there taking care of all this deceased woman's legal affairs. So he leaves the house after seeing this woman, and he passes out, and they find him and they take him to a hotel in town. And he wakes up and it's nighttime, and he looks, and over the end of the bed comes this woman, and they make this screeching sound. And if you look back on it, it might be corny to some people, but I got cold chills and almost jumped out of my skin. And I sent it to, after I finished watching, I sent it to Leonard Pickle, and he texted me back and said, "Thanks for depriving me sleep for 3 nights," or something like it. It's a great film. They remade it. remake was okay. It's, you know, when they remake a film and they overdo it,
Mhm.
like The Haunting,
Mhm.
and several other films where they just overdo it with effects and just cram too much stuff in it, where before it was simpler, it was scary. My favorite horror films are paranormal type movies, ghost movies, haunted house movies. The Changeling,
Yeah.
with George C. Scott.
Yeah.
The original.
Joseph, that ball coming down the.
Oh man.
Yeah, and then you just hear, the
Yeah.
recording.
Thump,
I always love
thump,
when you find
thump.
something on a recording,
Yes.
right? And they play it back, and all you hear.
Joseph.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was amazing movie. And Legend of Hell House.
Yeah.
I saw that in the movie theaters, and I met Roddy McDowell at a Star Trek convention of all places, and I said that movie it terrified me. He said that was scary, wasn't it? I said yes, it was.
Well, Tim, this has been joyous. Thank you. I'd love to have you back on the show at some point, and but have a happy Halloween and stay haunted.
You have a happy Halloween too. I'll be up scaring people thanks to you. You wrote an amazing story and script that we deliver, and I'm having a blast. I head out tomorrow morning back to Kentucky.
Yeah.
I'll be up there through Halloween. Come back on the 2nd.
Yeah.
But hope you have a great Halloween. You burn your pumpkin this year, aren't you?
I will, absolutely. That's one of my traditions. I carve a pumpkin, and then every Halloween night, after all the trick-or-treaters are gone, before I finally just everybody kind of goes to bed, I'm like, okay, I'm going to watch a movie, but before I do that, I go out and I burn the pumpkin and take photos of it. And so absolutely, you'll be getting photos of that on the first.
Well, I had that happen only inadvertently. we just one of the candles fell over, and you get that black section on the inside of the pumpkin. So
yeah.
Well, I hope you have a great Halloween. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you, Tim. Have a good one.
You too, buddy.